Welcome to the Orangeburg Area Free Public Library, and welcome back to Tuesday Story Hour with Mrs. Price. I'm going to be reading Will Spring Be Early or Will Spring Be Late? Don't forget to come in and get your free craft bag related to the story. Will Spring Be Early or Will Spring Be Late by Crockett Johnson. Will it be early or late? It was the second morning of February, and the woods and the fields were covered with snow. The wind blew from a cold gray sky. "This is the day," said the voice from under the ground. "This is the day I make my prediction. Will spring be early or will spring be late?" The voice came from a hole in the middle of the field. It was Groundhog coming up out of his tunnel, talking to himself. "If I don't see my shadow, spring will be early. I can go up right now and spread the glad tidings." The groundhog's nose came up in the hole, pausing just there. "But if I do see my shadow, I'll go back into my tunnel. It will mean bad news. Spring will be late this year." The groundhog shivered. "How nice it is that I am expected to stay out only when I have good news," he said as he raised himself up on his front paws. "Nobody wants to hear of a late spring." He looked up at the gray sky. "No shadows today," he said. "Spring will be early." He hopped out of the hole. "I must tell the animals. It will please them, even the grouchy pig who sneers at my predictions." He started off and stopped. "Wait, spring is an important matter. I must be certain there is no sun. I must make sure I have no shadows." Look up here. He tried to smell the sun. He raised his ears to listen for it, but all he smelled or heard was a truck on the road at the edge of the field. The road was beyond the edge of Groundhog's world. He paid no attention to the truck or the words on the front that said, "Artificial Flower Company, Incorporated." As the truck rounded the bend in the road, a red flower flew from it. The flower sailed high across the field on the wintry wind. "No sun, no shadow," said Groundhog, was saying to himself as he examined the snow at his feet. "Definitely an early spring." Smiling, he set off towards the woods where most of the animals slept during the cold winter. "How delighted they will be when I tell them that my prediction will spread joy throughout the land." And he hopped along happily, humming a spring song. Suddenly he halted. There, with its stem in the snow, was a bright red flower in full bloom. The groundhog stared at it. His eyes grew wide and his mouth opened. "Spring," he whispered. Then he shouted, "Spring! It's here now!" because he saw the red flower. He broke into a run. "I have never made a better prediction than this. Even the pig will congratulate me." He yelled through the woods. "Spring is here!" "Spring?" said the badger. "The groundhog said so," said the dormouse, dancing around in the snow. "Spring is here." "Spring?" said the skunk. "Is it really spring?" "The groundhog said so," said Rabbit, hopping with joy and skidding on a patch of ice. The squirrel stuffed the last of his acorns into his mouth. With a carefree cheer, he jumped from his hollow tree and landed in a snowdrift. "Spring!" yelled the chipmunk. "Thanks to the groundhog." "The good predictor," cheered the raccoon, holding out a paw as the groundhog ran by. "Spring is here," said the groundhog. He kept shouting in a voice that was becoming a little hoarse. "I predict that spring is here." He ran on and on to Bear's cave. When Bear woke up and heard what the groundhog was saying, he roared in delight. "Groundhog, you do better every year. Spring! Spring in February? Splendid. What would we do without you?" "I don't know," said Groundhog, swelling up his chest as he ran along. At last he came to the pig. The shouting and cheering had wakened the pig, and now he was grumpily rooting under a tree stump for breakfast. "Spring! Spring is here," said the groundhog, shouting loudly into Pig's ear. "Harumph!" said Pig. "Spring!" said the groundhog. With a mouthful of frozen roots, the pig turned around and glared at the groundhog. "Look," he said, snorting and thrusting his snout towards the windswept field. "Snow, ice. It's spring," said the groundhog, suddenly shivering. "Go away," said the pig, and he went back to his rooting. The groundhog went back to the other animals. "Spring is really here," he said. "Come, let me show you." "Of course spring is here," said the rabbit. "You said so." "And you are always right," said the bear. "If you were not, we wouldn't believe in you." "Come," said the groundhog. The animals followed him to the field where the red flower in full bloom. It was more than they needed to see. They danced in a circle around it and shouted in praise of spring and of the groundhog. The pig stopped rooting for breakfast and came over to see what was going on. The happy animals watched him as he trotted up to the red flower. "You see," said the groundhog, "spring is here." "Harum," said the pig, staring at the flower. Then he rooted it up out of the snow, shook it in his mouth, and chomped on it. He tossed the flower aside. "The leaves are paper, the stem is wire, the petals are plastic, and a lot of you will freeze out here." As he left, he glanced at the sky and at the groundhog. "I have a prediction to make. He says it's going to snow." And all of a sudden, it began to snow. Shivering, the animals looked at the twisted flower, and they looked at one another. The groundhog began to creep slowly away. "Just a moment," bellowed the bears. "There's some explaining to be done here. What is the cause of this? Why are we out in this freezing snowstorm?" "We're celebrating spring," said Chipmunk. "We were all so happy," the dormouse said, "until the pig came and chewed the flower." "Precisely," shouted the bear. "And now we're cold and miserable and ridiculous. It's perfectly clear who is to blame." The animals all nodded. They blamed the pig, of course. And on the second morning of every February, the groundhog continues to make his prediction. Will spring be early or will spring be late? Thank you so much for joining us and welcoming us into your home. We hope you come and visit us soon and come and take out some books. Thank you very much and have a good day.